What is up, everyone? Welcome back. Today I'm talking about a new episode of The Real Housewives of New York. That's season 14, The New Era, episode 4. So the episode starts with Brynn and Erin waking up. Apparently they slept in the same bed. I forgot they were still at Erin's house in the Hamptons. So everybody's waking up and they make their way to the kitchen to make breakfast. Ubah also shares that she has a hot sauce that she launched and it's on Oprah's favorite list. That's so random, but that's so cool. Erin makes shakshuka. I don't know what that is. I think it's something of Erin's culture, but they're eating that, and then as they're eating, they're talking about Thanksgiving, which is coming up, and they share their plans that each of them have. Erin says she's going to be there at the Hamptons in that house. She says that the mother-in-law is going to be cooking, and she only lives 10 minutes away, and sometimes she shows up unannounced. And some of the women say, oh, that's horrible, why would she come unannounced? And Brynn says, wow, I would love that, to have a family that would come unannounced, to have a family at all, because she doesn't really have any. So she opens up a little bit. She also has a lot of exes, and because she doesn't have a family, a lot of the time she finds herself calling them again because she has no one. That is so sad. She says that she was engaged to a British guy, and they're not together anymore, but they're still talking. And then after breakfast, the women officially leave. That's a wrap for this girls' trip in Erin's house. Then we see a scene with Erin. She's in her element. She is a home designer and a real estate agent, and she's in a house that she's working on. I found it surprising that she speaks a little bit of Spanish. She was talking to those workers in there. It really looks like she loves what she does. We move on to Brynn, who's at the hair salon, and she's getting her hair done, and she opens up about the fact that her hair is a little different because she's biracial. Her mom is white and her dad is black, but she has never met absolutely anyone from her dad's side, so that meant she only spent time with white people, so she didn't have a lot of exposure to the black community. So at times she says she even felt embarrassed of being black when she was young. That was surprising because, if I'm honest, I did not know that she was biracial. Just by looking at her, I thought she was a white girl, but that was really interesting. Okay, moving on to Ubah. She is in her apartment and one of her friends / business consultants comes over. She says that she would like an investor, but she's a little bit scared because she's not used to that type of stuff. Culturally, when you do something, your uncle helps you, your aunt helps you. I can definitely relate to that. But in that moment, she kind of gets emotional and cries because she realizes that her people are not there with her. And this was the saddest part. The friend says to Ubah, well, you have your new friends here. We're all here for you. And Ubah says, I miss my mom, and starts to break down. It's one of the saddest things I've seen. Thankfully, her friend is there to cheer her up and encourage her to keep doing what she's doing. Moving along to Sai, she's cooking with her husband, and she tells him that she feels so sad hearing that Brynn has no family. It kind of reminds her of herself before she got married. So she would love to do a Friendsgiving. She calls Brynn on FaceTime and shares the idea and says we could call it a Friendsgiving. And Brynn loves the idea. She's very excited. And then they also talk about a little bit of the mess that happened in Erin's house, more specifically Jessel, because of how rude she was over the lingerie thing. And they seem very invested in the fact that she hasn't had sex in 2 years. So Sai tells her husband, what do you think about that? And he says, listen, I have never had a kid physically come out of me, but I can imagine that it's painful and it changes things down there for a woman. So maybe y'all should, chill, lay back a little bit. And I'm glad he said that because I think he's right. They need to back off of Jessel in that situation. And Jessel is actually the next scene. She's at home with her husband and kids. They are working from home, both of them, so that's pretty cool. And they start to talk about the kids. Jessel wants to put them in some high fancy school. I don't know why, they're like toddlers. And then she also tells them about what happened at the weekend in the Hamptons. She says that she felt like the sacrificial lamb. She says, I wasn't saying anything bad. I was just saying things like it was cold. And he says that, sometimes your tone of voice can be a little... He was having a hard time figuring out what word to use. And she says, oh, so you're calling me a bee? But he does have a point, because sometimes it's not what you say, it's how you say it. And I do feel like Jessel has like the way she says things do come across a little bit arrogant. And she also tells him that it was brought up that they haven't had it in a while. And she says that they should start to get back into it. But let's move on to Erin. She's in her apartment and Jenna comes over. She brings a gift, I guess, to thank her for hosting them in her house. And she actually bought it while shopping with Jessel. So Jessel and Jenna had an opportunity to talk over the issues. And now Jessel is not really mad at Jenna. Like, she's okay with her. But she feels like the, quote, cackling hens came for her. So now Jenna is telling Erin about this, that she called them cackling hags. And then they talk about this Friendsgiving, and if we finally see the Friendsgiving happening, Sai got a chef, she got a bartender, Brynn gets there, and as soon as she walks in, she's already flirting with the chef. But Sai has to tell her he's married. Then the others start to arrive, but okay, Sai is a little extra. She made every single one of them take their shoes off, which, I mean, I guess it's fine, her house, her rules, but don't host a party if you're going to be doing all that, because that's way too much. Jessel comes over and gives her condolences to Erin because they had just buried her grandmother that same day, and she says, "Oh, I'm sorry, but I hope that it went well, though." And then she just turns around and goes off as if nothing happened, and Erin's like, okay, like she feels like Jessel has like a missing chip or something. But you know what it reminded me of? It reminded me of when Wendy Williams said, "Oh, she passed away. Aw." Anyway, like that's what it was giving. Like Jessel is so out of touch. Then Erin whispers to Brynn and Ubah that Jessel called them cackling hags, and Jenna says, "Well, you know what? We kind of are cackling hags." And I don't think she meant it in a bad way, but Erin and Brynn are a little bit too dramatic over it. But then they move on to start eating, and Sai shares a little bit of why she did this dinner, because she was thinking of Brynn, and they ask Brynn how she's doing, and she gets very emotional because the holidays, you know, it kind of reminds her of those very dark times. She says that her mother was young when she had her sister and brother, and they only lived with their parents for like 6 months, and they were super poor. Her dad got into some type of trouble, and she's having a hard time putting it into words, but she was essentially saying that they suffered a lot of abuse and neglect. She really could not get into any more details because it was just so hard for her to talk about it, and that's where the episode ends. And that was pretty sad. I feel like this episode we got to kind of peel layers on some of the women like Brynn and Ubah, and that's really nice to see. Like, it's sad, but like it kind of connects you with that person, and I'm sure some people out there could relate to them. But yeah, the show is starting to, like I said last time, we're starting to get a little bit more familiar with the women, so it doesn't feel as like odd as it did in the first episode, and I'm liking it. Next episode there will be some drama with Jessel. Listen, I thought Jessel was going to be the most boring one, but it looks like she's going to be the center of the drama, so that's interesting. But you guys, did you guys watch this episode? What were your thoughts? Did you appreciate what we saw this episode? Let me know anything you want to tell me. Please don't forget to like. I'll have a great one. Bye.